Managing technology changes through scattered emails, informal messages, and disconnected spreadsheets leads to service outages, security exposure, and failed audit findings. This diagram outlines the end-to-end change lifecycle. Moving away from chaos requires this unified process. Every technical change passes a strict sequence of checkpoints. A request goes through validation, risk assessment, and approval before CAB review. Then it is scheduled, implemented, verified, and closed. Enforcing this rigid sequence is the only way an enterprise can reliably prevent self-inflicted service outages and critical compliance violations. If you skip a step, you introduce risk. To build this foundation, we utilize SharePoint as a relational database engine, replacing flat spreadsheets with structured, linked data cables. This section of the solution architecture maps the core data flow. Information moves from the Power Apps intake form directly into the primary SharePoint change requests list. We also separate the data by maintaining distinct lists for approval history and the change activity log. Alongside those data lists, we create a dedicated change configuration list. This acts as the central brain for the system's business rules. This configuration list holds variables like CAB members and blackout dates. Keeping them here prevents developers from writing those rules directly into the automation logic, where they become brittle and prone to breaking. By extracting configuration from the automation layer, administrators can update the rules whenever the business evolves, without ever needing developer intervention or risking the core workflow. Step 1 in execution is locking down the perimeter. A Power Apps intake form serves as the single controlled gateway for all technical change requests. Inside, complex data is structured logically. They fill out basic information, move through detailed implementation planning, and provide a comprehensive risk assessment. The form acts as a strict filter. It enforces mandatory attachments, such as step-by-step rollback plans and testing evidence, before the final submit button even becomes active. Rejecting incomplete data at this perimeter is much safer than allowing it into the system and pausing an active workflow later to hunt down missing information. Uncompromising intake validation at the front door strictly protects the integrity and the speed of the entire downstream approval pipeline. Once the request is in, we trigger the automation. But you must completely avoid the trap of building the entire change lifecycle inside a single massive Power Automate flow. A technical limitation exists. Flows waiting on approvals time out after exactly 30 days, losing data. We bypass this using state-based workflows. Instead of one long sequence, multiple independent workflows trigger sequentially only when a specific status threshold is crossed. Because these workflows update the exact same SharePoint record that triggered them, we configure precise trigger conditions to prevent catastrophic infinite loops. Even with conditions in place, systems fail. That is why we implement a structured try, catch, and finally error handling pattern within the flow. This pattern ensures that if an automated action fails, it is caught and securely written to the audit trail, rather than failing silently and leaving the change in limbo. This modular design prevents the common 30-day flow timeout, ensuring that change requests are tracked through to completion without requiring a manual restart. Now that the architecture is stable, the workflow routes the request. Not all changes require the same level of scrutiny, which requires a dynamic, risk-based routing engine. The system automatically calculates a precise risk score by mathematically multiplying the change's business impact by its likelihood of failure. This matrix visualizes adaptable approval paths. Low-risk standard changes follow an accelerated, automated path, bypassing heavy review. In contrast, critical changes enforce an escalating path, moving from technical owner to security to CAB and finally executive authority. This restores the true function of the Change Advisory Board. The CAB becomes an exclusive entity reserved strictly for resolving high-risk conflicts, not a meeting for rubber-stamping routine updates. Mathematically defined risk routing accelerates business velocity while simultaneously tightening security around your most critical operational assets. Before any approved change is implemented, the workflow runs automated pre-flight controls. It scans for scheduling conflicts and organizational blackout dates before allowing the deployment to proceed. All of this activity feeds into a Power BI dashboard, serving as the real-time operational window into the health of the enterprise environment. This dashboard displays the metrics leadership requires. It shows pending approvals, risk distributions, and upcoming implementations to monitor system stability and spot bottlenecks. Most importantly, it tracks failed and rolled back changes alongside your target success rate, allowing you to quickly identify systemic weaknesses. This live telemetry allows managers to identify specific workflow bottlenecks and resolve scheduling conflicts before they impact the production environment. A request moves from intake validation through the risk assessment engine and directly into the appropriate automated routing matrix. When the process is complete, Power Automate generates a final CAB summary document and permanently logs it into the evidence library for compliance audits. If an issue occurs, a mandatory post-implementation review is triggered, forcing the organization to capture lessons learned and correct the process. Leveraging this architecture replaces disconnected chaos with a controlled, scalable governance system that actively protects the enterprise. Subscribe to our channel and download the complete architecture guide below to start building.